This is part 2 of Africa and our changing world. Africa is still in the old mode. When I say Africa, in any group of people, as I said before, there will be that 1% who's going to come up with ideas that make other people feel threatened. And you can add another 18–19% that's going to look at those ideas and kind of take those ideas and say, you know what, I can create something with that. And that 20% is what moves it forward. It doesn't take the whole population. I often hear people talking about how we all have to come together in order to change the world. But no, we all don't have to come together to change the world. It's that 20%, because the other 80%, 20% of them, you got 100%, you got 20% of people who would think logically and act rationally, who look at people, they're like the guardian angels of the planet. And then there's the 20% opposite side, who are willing to destroy for power, or what they think is their power. And that 20% is what runs Africa today. Those are the 20% that are the leaders and the government officials in Africa. But there's a 20% that watches over Africa. And we are not seeing their actions yet, but it's going to have a devastating effect on Africa, because that's when the so-called Judgment Day comes. That 20% is what keeping Israel from carrying out that experiment that the wicked 20% put in place. And if they did it in World War II, World War I, II, and they did it in the US when the Caucasian came over, he wiped out the native population. This is the experiment that's ongoing. It happened, not happened, it's done. Then they let memory of it fade. Then it's done again, and memory fade, and then it's done again. What the Israelis are doing today is the same thing as what was done in World War II. But they thought by branding anybody anti-Semitic, they can get away with it. It was such a powerful tool, they thought. But that 20%, you see what I'm saying? Nevertheless, that 20%, the United States under Hoover decided that they will not allow a black man into the role of leadership. And any black man who stands up to lead black people, no matter where in the world, must be killed. must be killed. If they can't come and buy him out, then they kill him. And you can see examples of that throughout history. I mean, you can go back, people talk about Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, even Bob Marley. And all the leads about Patrice Lumumba. You know, they bought off Kenyatta, they bought off Selassie. You know, they bought off currently the Egyptian, the guy from Senegal, the guy from Ghana, now the guy from Kenya. You know, either we get you or we get you. But I told you they were coming back. And when the war began, I said, look, don't focus on the war. Just watch it. What I want you to focus on is the preparation to return. And I got 2 videos that I would like you to go watch. The first one is called The African Line That Will Shape the Future. And it's on a channel called City Architecture Gang. Architecture, like an architect, a builder, the one who draws houses and plans and all that. So, by this video was put up on a channel, YouTube channel called City Architecture Gang. The name of the video, the title, is The African Line That Will Shape the Future. It tells you about the plan of recreating America and London in Africa. And I've been talking about this occasionally. Say, yes, we have to show that Africa is not this backward place where the animals roam and these people, where the tribes still carry bows and arrows and run around behind white men. Like, how? That's gone. As a matter of fact, never was, but you know. But there are many African YouTubers who have proved, who have shown, you know, through their work that Africa can become anything that it wants. The problem is that with them doing this, what has happened is that they've drummed out the indigenous growth ideas. So now everybody want to create this New York, Washington, D.C. in Africa. And that's how the Caucasian makes money. He builds something like that. If you watch his history, you see he builds something like that in New York, then he crashes the housing market. It turns into a slum. And then your house, that if you live there, went from $1 million down to 20,000. 20 years later, he comes back, buys your house for 20,000. What he does is go and throw some paints on it, clean up the walls, and sells it again for $1 million. And he says the area is coming back to its once vibrant. See? And that is how they create power and money, wealth and power. And the plan to do that in Africa is on the way. And this video talks about it. Watch the video carefully. The second video that I want to talk about is by this. There's the economic minister, former economic minister of France. He made a statement and listen, like me, I always listen to see what African leaders say about these things. And what Africans, when I say leaders, I include the people who got big YouTube channels with 50, 100,000, 200,000, 500,000, and 1,000,000 people. I listen to them and see what they had to say, and they're all dumb, blind when it comes to issues like this. Silence. Anyway, this video is called Former Economics Minister Blames Macron for Opening the Eyes of Africans. Let me repeat. Former Economics Minister blames Macron for opening the eyes of Africans. And it's on a channel called the African Reload channel. Okay, this video is being made, a clip of this video is being included under the fair use statutes of the United States. Well, really, actually the world. This for the video is for educational purposes, and that's why I'm including a clip of the video. But go to the channels that I suggested and look at the videos in its entirety. Support those channels because they produce very good information that you can use. I'm serious now. You can use this information to accomplish what you want to accomplish. For those of us going to Africa, we need this information. We need this information because it will prepare us for what's going to happen in Africa. And the Africans themselves are not being prepared for what's about to happen to them. When I say the Africans themselves, the people who are born in Africa are not being prepared by their leaders. As a matter of fact, they're being deliberately kept unprepared. Leaders are being paid to do this. But this will educate you so that when you arrive in Africa, you will be prepared. The starvation hasn't ended. The biological economic war has not ended in Africa. It is just beginning. That's why you see that people are coming back. Initially, they come back, they wipe out the population because they can't put them in slavery now. Slavery, there's no need for slavery now. Everybody's a slave. Everybody. But slavery now is blasé. It's not specific people, but it's just everybody. So, have to kill off a certain percent of the population for control purposes. The world population is falling out of their control. Anyway, the two videos again, the African Line That Will Shape the Future, and this is on the channel called City Architectural Gang. And the second video is Former Economics Minister blames Macron for opening the eyes of Africans. And this one is on a channel called Africa Reloaded. Africa Reloaded.
Coast is a must visit for any investor. Why is this stretch of West Africa's coastline, spanning 600 kilometers eastward through Ghana, Togo, and Benin, before reaching Lagos, poised to be the cornerstone of tomorrow's world? Stay with us to in the annals of global urban evolution, a once overlooked coastal fringe now emerges as the epicenter of planetary future. Staggering demographic projections unveil West Africa as the focal point of the impending urban transformation. With nearly 40% of the world's population estimated by the century's end, Africa is destined to lead urbanization on an unprecedented scale. Abidjan, with its projected 8.3 million inhabitants, will soon rival iconic megacities such as New York. Lagos, one of Africa's most populous cities, sees rapid population growth with 5,000 daily migrants. By 2035, Lagos could reach 24.5 million inhabitants. But this is just the beginning. Bold projections indicate that by 2100, the Lagos-Abidjan stretch will become the largest continuous and densely populated urban area on the planet, housing nearly 500 million people. It's not just about numbers. This West African coastal line embodies a new era of power and influence in the global landscape. As highlighted by Howard W. French, a professor at Columbia University Graduate School of Journalism in the United States, Africa is emerging as the driver of future urbanization. And it's precisely along this coastline that the most significant transformations will manifest. It lies in a coastal part of West Africa and stretches 600 kilometers eastward through Ghana, Togo, and Benin before reaching Lagos. Many experts have come to believe that this region of Africa would be a future megalopolis, a kind of densely clustered metropolitan center along the West African coast. In fact, this area could accommodate up to 40 million people in its major cities within a decade, absorbing surrounding towns and contributing to rapid population growth. Including new cities, the population of this coastal region could reach 51 million inhabitants by 2035, comparable to global megacities like the northeastern United States corridor. A historical comparison shows that the New York metropolitan area, with over 10 million people in the 1950s, became the center of one of the first urban areas to be described this way. Indeed, it appeared as a nearly continuous, densely populated region spanning 400 miles from Washington, D.C. to Boston.
Last year, after the coup in July, dealing a significant blow to France's policy in Africa. In August last year, a group of 94 French senators wrote an open letter to President Macron in which they criticized his administration over its Africa policy, which has triggered anti-French sentiment in the continent. The letter, published by the French daily Le Figaro, called on Macron to review France's policy in Africa. The senators also noted that the failure of Operation Barkhane was in great part the reason why France and its economic, political, and military presence are now rejected in Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and the Central African Republic. Of yesterday has been replaced by the military Russafrique, the economic Chinafrique, or the diplomatic Americafrique, said the letter. Isn't it time to review our vision of Africa and its link with France? The letter asked. A former economic minister of France, Thierry Breton, said something that honestly, we can't believe went unnoticed. This man posted it on his Twitter page and nobody, not even African media houses, took note of it until now. What he said is something that every African, including African leaders, needs to think about deeply so they can chart the way forward. So what did Breton Thierry say? He said, it's the imbecility of Emmanuel Macron that opened the eyes of Africans. One thing is sure, if France loses its colonies, our children and grandchildren will go to Africa to search for their livelihoods. Immigration will change direction. Macron needs to go. If not, France will suffer. Europe needs to unite to fight this new African vision. If one of the heads of the putschists falls, the others will abandon the vision. Africa does not have history, so Africa can't manage the world. Did you listen to that? With how fast information files in the age, it's truly baffling how this post went unnoticed until now. Let's analyze this statement. Did you listen to that? With how fast information files in the age, it's truly baffling how this post went unnoticed until now. Let's analyze this statement. First, he said that it was the imbecility of President Macron that opened the eyes of Africans. Was it truly? First of all, the change in African geopolitics that began with the coup in the Sahel has become so obvious that French elites like Thierry know it. And that is why he said that the eyes of Africans have been opened. However, His statement meant that Africa has been asleep for a long time, and that is why France has been able to maintain its hold on the continent since colonial times. It also means that there have been deliberate actions by France to make the continent remain asleep by setting up puppet leaders, sending aid, and ensuring that Africa is continuously dependent on France in every aspect, including trade and defense. However, we would not agree with him saying that it was Macron's actions that opened the eyes of Africans. Rather, the insecurity and underdevelopment that Africans have suffered for so long, coupled with the coups which brought a change of leaders, is what opened the eyes of Africans and roused them from their slumber. The next thing Thierry said was that if France lost its colony, the next generation of French citizens would go to Africa to search for their livelihood, and immigration would change direction. So, instead of Africans scrambling to go through dangerous routes to get to Europe in search of better opportunities, it would be French citizens coming to Africa.
The funny thing about what's going on is that all across Africa, the young men are leaving for Europe. But the young women too, you know. In any state of Africa, you're going to see groups of young women taking TikTok videos. What do you think they're taking these TikTok videos? You go on the beach in Gambia on a Sunday and see the 15, 13, 12-year-old making videos for TikTok. You can tell they're making videos for TikTok. You can see how they're dressed. TikTok and Instagram and YouTube trying to attract European men. Either get to Europe or get these men to send them money in Africa. So the young men are being put out of the country so that they won't be a threat to the leaders. That's why our African leaders have big armies. They don't have big armies because they want to fight the enemy, the real enemy. They want to protect themselves from the local population. While the African leaders are kicking out the men, they're begging people to come in and invest, but the money that people bring in, invest into the country, is not going in to help the local people, it's going into their pockets. That's the money, they take money from the rich people to enslave their own people, destroy their own country, and they're taking people from the diasporas that are coming. Going into their pocket either way. The country is remaining the same. You go to Gambia, you see villages with no roads, no water, no electricity. The country is taking income. Where is the money going? Before the army took over Niger and Burkina Faso, same thing was happening there. You got northern Nigeria and the Delta region, Cameroon, Ghana, they're all the same. Terrible conditions. But wealth being squandered. Anyway, go watch the videos. I hope you enjoyed them. Yes, me, I enjoy watching things. But prepare yourself to come to Africa. You need to be prepared. And those of you who are born in Africa, get yourself prepared. If you got friends or family, you have to find some way of talking to them about what's about to happen, getting them prepared. All right, have a great day wherever you are. Peace.